All right, welcome into this week at Gridiron Icon. Welcome into all our listeners, wherever you may be, on YouTube and all the major podcast channels. We have another really exciting guest and another former teammate this week that we're going to deep dive on in the world of football, friendship, and beyond. But I must say, to get us started, that my co-host, who I always welcome in and will again this week, is a little bit on the IR. He's on the IR, but he's a team player, and he is showing up for an interview with one of his former teammates. A little rough on the voice, got a little cold going. My man, Preston Denard, how are we?
I'm doing quite well, my friend. That's the only way I can get away with this, because otherwise I'll just start coughing like crazy. But I'm doing well, excited to have Walt here, and we've been teammates for a number of years, college and pros. We're going to get to all that, but welcome, my friend. Glad to have you with us.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Very excited to have you, Walt. So for those who are listening and not watching on our YouTube channel, we are excited, as I mentioned, a bit of a preamble, to invite in another one of Preston's fantastic teammates from years gone by, an iconic and talented, I should say, all-around athlete, as we will come to find out, who again joins us from the world of New Mexico and the New Mexico Lobos football program. Also happens to be connected to my, or should I say our, Los Angeles Rams. He was a free agent out of college, that college, of course, being New Mexico, went on to stops with the Redskins, the Oilers, and finished his career with the world champion Kansas City Chiefs while playing 8 seasons in the NFL. I want to give my own special welcome into Walt Arnold. Welcome in, Walt.
Got your own crowd there, baby.
And is it safe to say, Preston, this might be our first tight end?
You know what? That's you. Hey, let me tell you, you beat a heck of a tight end we got coming up in a couple of weeks. And you're the first one, Walt. And that tight end coming is the all-time great Marv Fleming, original Packer and Dolphin. So I'm going to let him know we got you in the first round.
I love it.
Right.
He'll love that.
Walt Arnold beat him to the punch. You know, this is fantastic because we get lots of perspectives on this show. So it's always fun to break it down by position where, look, we got questions, Walt. You're forewarned. And, of course, I've got plenty having to do with my co-host and my better half over there, Mr. 88 there, Preston Denard. But what we'd like to do is learn about you as a person. Can you take us back to just being a kid and tell us how you got involved in sports, if sports was even a love or you stumbled into it just because you were talented, and then what sports you played? Kind of walk us back to being a young guy.
Well, thanks again. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I grew up in Galveston, Texas, and my whole family grew up in South Texas area. All my aunts and uncles and mom and dad went to the University of Texas, so I grew up a big Longhorn fan, and obviously who in Texas doesn't grow up a Dallas Cowboy fan, so that was kind of my grow up. I grew up and started playing football when I was about 10 years old in Galveston, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different there than I think it is now today, because not only did I have to try out for the football team, they cut guys, you didn't make it, not everybody played. I also had to try out for the Little League baseball team, and not everybody made that either. So it's like, but that was kind of the start of my career. And then I was about 12 years old, my parents, both teachers, decided, we want a change of scenery, a change in lifestyle. And we had always gone to the Pecos by Pecos, New Mexico, the Santa Fe National Forest in northern New Mexico. And they acquired a gas station in Los Alamos, New Mexico. So here I moved from, my parents are teachers, my dad buys a gas station, and pretty soon we're in Los Alamos. We go from sea level to, hot, no mountains, different whole social, economic environment to Los Alamos, New Mexico, probably one of the most famous places in the world, really. 7,200 feet high, totally different environment as far as just the lifestyle and everything else. Los Alamos, obviously, is where they built the atomic bomb. So,
right,
small community in northern New Mexico, basically started as a city in early 40s, Oppenheimer built it there. He had been there at a boys' ranch, and so they built it. And I went to high school there and played 3 sports: football, basketball, and baseball. when I was I was good at rebounding and passing in basketball. I just did what they told me to do, and then excelled in football and baseball, and then got a scholarship to the University of New Mexico, played football, and then I played baseball there 4 years also. So I played 4 years of football and 4 years of baseball at UNM, and had success there. At UNM, I was playing. Not only did I play with Preston, and he was my teammate when I got there, and because he was a big star, I was just a little peon.
Oh, tell.
He was he had everybody, after him and wanting to talk to him, and I was just trying to survive, which is kind of a lot of my career. But but I played with a guy named Chris Combs, who was a tight end. He was a tight end with me as a freshman, and we kind of alternated plays a lot. And then our senior year, Chris got drafted in the 4th round by the Houston Oilers, and luckily that I alternated plays with Chris, because when they scouted us and they saw us playing on film, I would come in every other play, or we would alternate plays. So I got a shot at to sign as a free agent with the Rams. The Rams had just been to the Super Bowl, and Preston had a great season that year. And again, I got a chance to. It's just all these little pieces of your life that kind of come together, because I go out there. I think I literally had one suitcase. Preston was a free agent too, so he knows what it's like. I was free agent, one suitcase. I figured I'd be home in a couple of days, but fortunately, Preston was there, which helped a lot. And another thing that helped was Lionel Taylor. I'm not saying he helped me, but Lionel Taylor played college at New Mexico Highlands, and of course, his name is on the Ring of Honor in Bronco Stadium. So I think he just gave me a few chances, a little bit of opportunity that maybe you would have bypassed on somebody else. But and that's interesting too, because in sports, a lot of times I always say to people that it's like, hey, you're only, you're 1 or 2 plays away from playing. And that first year, my rookie year, a couple tight ends in front of me had injuries, and I got a chance to play and got the opportunity to do some things, and it worked out well. And then I played, 2 years there, and Preston was my teammate. Preston welcomed me in my first touchdown catch, and Giant Stadium, little tight end
cool
play, kind of hit out and went across the field and caught a touchdown. And I think it was from Pat Hayden or Vince Ferragamo that year. And and then had a career where I played a couple years in Los Angeles, a couple years basically in Houston, and then the last 4 in Kansas City. But my career was a lot like a lot of players. I'm just trying to. I always used to say it's like that poster with that cat, just hanging on that bar. It just says, "Just hang in there, baby." So, I got to play a lot and started a lot and did some things, but it is a very tough, demanding job. I loved it. I loved everything about it, but it's no easy road. I mean, there's one job in America, outside maybe the military, that's really performance driven, and that's the NFL. And you don't play well, you're only as good as your last game, your last play, and you kind of learn that, and you kind of learn how to mentally adjust to that. And I think I've learned a lot through that whole process, and I've met a lot of great people through the years. Teammates at New Mexico, teammates in Los Angeles, in Houston, and in Kansas City. So
God,
I'm part of World Championship Super Bowl team. So
if you don't mind, Walt, what I'd like to do is just break down the chapters of your life, because I think it inspires today's athlete, inspires yesterday's and today's fans. So I'm going to kind of break this down with you, because you mentioned baseball as a kid. It's a theme on this show. It is an uncanny theme. Might be the thing I've learned the most. Here comes 388. Here it comes. Your teammate here, and my teammate now, Mr. Denard, that 388 batting average. So you were a young guy trying out for Little League. And did you actually prefer baseball over football, or was it just kind of you liked all the sports? It's amazing to learn.
I really enjoyed baseball, and I love baseball. It's like, it's such a different sport, because it's individual and it's a team-oriented sport, but it's really you against the pitcher or you against, the fly ball or ground ball. And so it kind of it's an individualized environment and a team atmosphere. I love it. My wife's oldest son now plays baseball at Trinity University in San Antonio. So it's like, all right,
Wow.
my kids, for some, it's a very tough sport because there's so much there's not a lot of, it's not a lot of success. I always tell people, if they call people that hit 300 in the major leagues Hall of Famers, it's like you hit 300 for your career and you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. So, that's not a lot of, you're struggling. You're not winning all the time. You strike out and you got to wait 8 more batters to get up again. So, it's not like football. You got one play after another, but I loved it. It's a great sport. I love watching it today. I have a good friend of mine, a guy that I played with at New Mexico, named Sam Bregman and Ben Bregman. And Sam's son is Alex Bregman, who played at Albuquerque Academy in Albuquerque. So it's fun to watch him and just get involved in that and go and see him play some. But it's a fascinating sport to me. I love it. I love its statistics. I remember when I saw this guy named Billy Bean talk at a conference. I was at a real estate conference.
Billy Bean.
So and he said about this book Moneyball, and I bought like a signed copy. I bought it. I read the whole thing, I think, and I've watched the movie like 10 times. Just the analytical parts of baseball is just so amazing. I just love it.
I love that movie. I have to confess, I'm not a big baseball guy because I was terrible at it. Terrible. But I've seen that movie like you, Brad Pitt and Jonah, and it's a really intriguing concept with the Oakland A's and all that good stuff. So you were a baseball guy, just like my co-host here. It's Pat Thomas.
I love it. I've touched a lot of teammates. I have so many great teammates from New Mexico playing 4 years there. I had good success there. All WAC. We were in the WAC, Western Athletic Conference at that time. A couple years. I was home. I was a first baseman, and then we got a better first baseman, and so they moved me to left field because I didn't have a very good arm, but you need to have a great arm in left field, so you can play out there. Throws to second and third or shorter, than the right field. But I tell people, it's like I tell my wife's son Matt, I said, it doesn't matter what you do in baseball, just hit. If you hit, they'll find a spot for you. So, but he's a catcher, and that's a tough position. But I love it. It's a great sport.
You know what? It's kind of ironic because it is an iconic theme for our show because every guest that we've had on, even Gary Templeton, the all-star San Diego Padre, gosh, he wanted to play football. And here us football players are saying we want to play baseball. Well, one thing I found, though, is my casualty with baseball was my freshman year. We've shared this on the podcast, and it was academically, and then fortunately, athletically, I became a star on the football field and had to stay there and do that journey. But I missed a great opportunity to play with Walt in baseball. And when he came, we could have been in the outfield together, and it would have been wonderful. But my journey didn't go that way. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Walt, is if we back up, we're talking about you played 4 years of baseball in college, and you also did that in football.
Wow.
Back in that time, late 70s, early 80s, kind of a tough thing to do. You didn't hear about that a lot. How did you manage a dual sport career in college?
Well, I like practice a lot, obviously.
I love that.
I like practice, but no, it was tough. I mean, first year when I was there, I had to go to spring football as a freshman. So I would literally go to spring football, and then after football was over, I'd walk across the parking lot and have a baseball game that night because in those days we played we played close to 80 games as our schedule. So there was a lot of games. We were playing almost every day. I managed it. Well, you spend a lot of time. You got to make sure you go to class. You got to make sure you get your work done. You don't take a ton of hours, obviously. You can't take a ton of hours and survive that. But, I just was committed to doing it. I wanted to do it. It was important to me. So I made it a priority and I got it done. And it was like football was over. When football was over, I had a little bit of break. And then I think baseball started at New Mexico like January 2nd or January 3rd. And then you play all the way through to the end of May. And then in the summer, I would lift, play football. I go get it. I had a job. I go lift. And then we'd play some, summer league baseball stuff. And then football I'd crank up again in August. So, my life was, a lot of just practice and sports. It was, for me, it was something that I loved. And the thing I think a lot about sports, and I wish you hear more about this these days, is the things that you learn in sports, how to win, how to lose, how to work with people, how to have teammates, how to get along with people, how to respect your coaches, how to, well, at least you might not like them, but they kind of they hold you in their hands sometimes. So you have to learn to get along with people. You have to do the right things. You can't make a lot of mistakes. So it's just all those things are such great life lessons that have propelled me, through the rest of my life and my career. But that's the thing I think people kind of discount a lot about sports, is just those lessons that are just invaluable. You just don't get them anywhere else.
Boy, do I agree with that. I was nowhere near the talent level of you guys, just an overachieving guy who played high school sports, but those lessons have followed me. So the intriguing part with you, Walt, is you were all state in 2 sports in high school, baseball, football. Did that play a role in you ending up with my co-host at New Mexico? Did they recruit you to be a dual sport athlete, or what does that look like?
They recruited me for football, and then I asked them if it's okay if I play baseball. I think they were saying, yeah, fine, go ahead and play. But if I sat on the bench, I think they would have, nixed it and said, hey, you better come out for football. It's interesting. I've seen other players that have gone to New Mexico to play 2 sports, and they get stuck in the baseball world. Like, they're not quite good enough for football, and then so they end up playing baseball. But I just, it worked for me. It was just the right time. They allowed it. They allowed me to do it.
Wow.
That's the main thing. I think today it's very difficult. It's very difficult to play 2 sports in high school, let alone college. And, most people are all stuck in this club world and club sports and everything else. So you get really locked into one sport. I thought playing 3 sports was beneficial. I enjoyed it. Also, as a kid growing up in Los Alamos, we skied all the time too, outdoor stuff. So, I had a kind of well-rounded sports, life. But I was recruited for primarily football, and that was kind of the way I thought about football too. Going into the NFL, I was like, if I make it a football, I'm at the top. If I try to do baseball, I'm on a bus somewhere, for 3 years and maybe move up to, so that was something I just made a decision on.
Did you have any other opportunities out there, scholarship-wise, to go elsewhere?
I could have gone to, didn't have a lot. I come out of Los Alamos, relatively small high school. By which I had scholarship to Rice. It was offered from Rice, which I guess that means I have some. I guess they thought I was smart or something. I'm not sure, but it's a pretty good university in Houston, and then in New Mexico State. But Los Alamos wasn't too far from me. It was about a 2-hour ride home. So, and I knew people that were going there, and so I just said, I'm doing that. And I'm glad I did. I mean, it worked out so great. I loved it.
So is it safe to say, I'm going to make a bold comment here, is it safe to say that you were the guy who set guys like Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson up for success? Like, you were the dual sport guy. I mean, without you, there's no them.
That's right. I mean, you probably look at their name, just go to the fine print at the bottom, thanks to Walt Arnold.
There you go.
And guys like him that played 2 sports. But, you don't see it a lot. And I was really amazed. The thing about those guys, especially, like Deion and Bo Jackson, not only did they play 2 sports, but they excelled at those 2 sports at such a very high level. And that's the kind of phenomenal athletes they are. And I think that there's still people out there like that today, but, when you're making the money they make in the NFL, well, what else do you need to do? Stay there. You don't have to do anything else.
It's so true. So socially, did you and Preston, you guys were teammates? I'm always up for some good Preston stories if you have any. But do you remember meeting Preston at the college level? And then how unique to then be teammtes at the pro level too. That's a lot of fun.
Preston, you have teammates at different levels. And Preston was always a great teammate for me. I mean, just always, inviting, never push off or everything. Always offering himself anyway. And plus, but Preston was a leader too. He was ahead of me, and he was also a leader. He had an example of just doing the right things. I mean, he worked hard. He did the right things. He ran. He was a great route runner. I mean, he was so disciplined on that stuff. So you watch your teammates, and I mean, did we hang out together? No. I mean, we didn't hang out together, but we had fun together. We were in the meetings together all the time. And then with the Rams, it was kind of the same thing. He was my teammate. I relied on him because I looked up to him because he was ahead of me and he knew what was going on. So he was. But like I said before, he was Preston's a big star. He's got
Hold on, Walt.
after him. He's got all.
You left out two things. So no, just kidding. Hey, that leads into a question.
One thing though,
Okay.
I don't know if you know this, Stacy, but Preston wrote a lot of poetry.
Ah, yeah.
I do know that. That's how I became a fan of his.
He would open his locker. We had these big long lockers. He'd open it up. He got all this stuff written out there. He had the best decked out locker space on the whole team. I don't think he had to probably charge people to take a look at it. It was so nice. But,
Very interesting.
He just like he is today. I mean, we've been great friends and even better, probably better friends now than we ever were. And it's been really phenomenal to have a teammate like him.
Well, you know what? I was going to kind of expand that and Walt, and I'll let you talk about that too as well. But Walt and I, after our careers, moved back here, everything. Walt's here. I get back here in 91. And we ended up coaching our boys in the youth football league here in Albuquerque. It's called Yaffle, and he coached his son and I coached mine, and we actually ended up coaching against each other. And I don't know if that's ever happened in youth football. Two former NFL guys, former teammates, go head to head. And we won't say who's a better coach. We both did well because he won. He won after I left. I won while I was there. But anyway, what I was going to say, I've always patterned when I coached my offense, and I always said this. There's three positions that's very important on the offense. That's the center, the tight end, and of course the quarterback. Those are the three main key focal points that I need to be successful at. And so I pose this question to you, Walt. You ended up, remember Preston Hall, he was tight end here first. Walt comes in, he's dealing with Chris Combs and a couple of other guys, but then you've had the experience to be in a lineup on teams that had at some point in time Charlie Young with the Rams, Terry Nelson, remember that? Mike Barber, Victor Hicks, remember Victor Hicks from Oklahoma, and David Hill, of course. And I think you were there when Henry Childs came too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those are all outstanding tight ends, and Walt was a part of that group, and it just says something special. Tell us about, first of all, kind of elaborate about the tight end position itself. I think it's a unique position. They're trying to get rid of it in a sense, but you got to run the ball, and you got to have a big guy to catch it, so it's not going anywhere. Tell us about it, why you loved it, and what it was like to be a part of that entourage of tight ends in the pros.
Well, yeah, you're right. I did, and then even when I went to Houston, I played with Dave Casper.
That's right. Oh, how cool!
Phenomenal guy. But you're right. I was in high school. I was a fullback and a linebacker, and I came to an I was a tight end from day one, and that's the only position I played the rest of my career was tight end.
Interesting.
It's one of those positions. The body type is similar to fullback or linebacker. It's about the same size, but there's so many things that the tight end has to do. I mean, because you're kind of a receiver, but you're kind of a lineman. So you spend a lot of your time with the lineman, then your time with the receivers. So you kind of get to passed around a little bit, and you got to know a lot about a lot of things. You got to know the pass routes, you got to know all the plays for passing, you got to know the run plays, how to do all that. And so I think it's a little bit of a mindset, just the fact that, I mean, it's just like anything else, Preston, you know that, in the NFL, you just cannot make mistakes. You can't do things wrong. And there's just a lot that happens at that position. There's a lot of blocking assignments you have to do. There's a lot of, and tight end, when I was playing, it's a lot different than it is now, because now they don't jam the tight end. We had like 2 periods where we just practice trying to get off the line of scrimmage. They were always just jamming you. So so you'd have to figure out how to get off the line of scrimmage. Then you got to get out in the pattern, and then you got to read the pattern. Is it zone or man? Or what I do there? If it's doing zone, I do this. If man, I do this. So your decision making is like very quick. You have to make decisions quick when you're a tight end. And it's just a position too where in the NFL, not only do you play, you're playing that position, but your body type is one that lends itself to special teams. So then you're on punt return, kickoff return, kickoff. I wasn't really good at kickoff, but those are crazy guys. But it just, there's so much to it, and you're right. I mean, the position today, Preston, I think is a little bit different than it was when I was playing. When I was playing, they ran the defense. The guy that was in front of me was about my size. He was a linebacker, stand-up linebacker, and all of a sudden, they kind of changed things. They decided we're not going to jam the tight end anymore. We're just going to. But then they put this big defensive end over him. He's like 6'5", 270. Well, guess how big the tight ends are now? They're 6'5", 270, but they're just fast, and so they don't get jammed anymore. And you can't touch anybody after 5 yards at all. So the position has changed and allowed the tight ends, those big guys, to get down the field, to get open. And obviously, Travis Kelce, just a phenomenal tight end. Hoping to see some, I think people will move towards that a little bit more and more. Yeah. And the game's changed. It's just changed. It's a different game. Even you, Preston, you had to get off the line too. You had to jam you at the line all the time. That's just gone. And I think that's great for the NFL. Made the offense a lot better. Who wants to see a 63 game, or 9-6, or 9-2,
Stacy.
I like those defensive guys.
But no, I think it's a combo position. I think more than any other position on football, because if you're a linebacker, you might do some things, but when you're a tight end, you got to run routes, you got to get open, you got to block guys, and you have to do. And sometimes you're playing both sides of the ball and everything else. So it just takes a certain type of individual, and obviously you just got to do it right. Read defenses, read coverages, and make good decisions.
It's an incredible position. It is. I grew up in the era, obviously watching you two. I remember when you were with the Rams, I watched Preston, big fan of his, knew about the poetry, subject for another day. But the era of Kellen Winslow and Ozzie Newsome and Todd Christensen and Dave Casper. And then I watch, by the way, do you ever get confused for number 87 in Kansas City? Does anybody?
No, they always ask me if I
I was wondering that. Okay, yeah.
I let Kelce use my number.
There you go.
Did you give him permission on that? Okay. Yeah. But it's incredible. The tight end position has almost revolutionized football, in my opinion. I mean, we're watching tight end screens now. I remember when I was a kid watching you guys, it was 22 formation, 2 tight ends, fullback, right? Now we're running tight end screens
and shuffles at that.
Yeah. I think it started with the Redskins when they won the Super Bowl. I think it was early 80s, and they had a 2 tight end offense. We were going to a 2 tight end, one move guy and one bigger guy that was more of a blocking guy. And what I did was I was kind of that move guy. So I was kind of in an era where people were having more tight ends. But today, the tight end, they're split out. They run all kinds of different screens. They run all kinds of, like, either shuffle passes, anything else. They get the ball in the backfield and run it. The tight ends are replacing the fullback a lot in blocking because the tight end is so big now. So it's a very versatile position. And I think some teams might carry 4 tight ends. So they just use them for everything.
The Rams did, and thank goodness they did, because remember Higbee and Kendall Blanton, they all went down in the Super Bowl, and Bryson Hopkins was thrown in. They were going, Bryson hasn't played all year. There he is. Yeah, it's a dynamic position, and I always wonder, someone like yourself, like you're watching now, going, wow, I wish I could have played today. I
wish I was that big, 6'5" or 6'6" and 260. And
How
those guys,
big were you, Walt? How big were
I
you?
was 6'3", 230.
Okay. Okay. So you'd be a
So
nice
that
size
was kind of
receiver now.
that was about the size of most tight ends, not too much bigger. 6'4", maybe 6'5" would be pretty big.
Wow.
But it was a great position. Got to play with a lot of great players, just like Preston. A lot of great players. You kind of in Houston, I got to play with Earl Campbell and
Oh,
Archie Manning at the very end of his career, and just so many. I went to the Hall of Fame this last year. My wife and I went to the Hall of Fame and
fun.
in Canton because we were up there watching Matt, her son, play in the summer. And you just walk around, you see all those busts, and you go, oh my gosh, I played with him. I played with him. It's like it's nice to see all. It's like it's just what an impact the era that I was in, that we were in. A lot of those players have made such a great impact in the NFL.
And ironically, Walt played for two teams that I never played in their stadium in my career. And that was back when we had 28 teams. So it was Kansas City and Houston. Never been in Astrodome and never been at Arrowhead Stadium.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you another one.
Interesting.
I'll ask one for you. You finished in Green Bay.
I did. I finished in Green Bay.
That was the only place I never played was Green Bay.
Oh, wow. Now, I take it you played in Buffalo then.
I did play in Buffalo.
Okay.
Wow,
Yeah.
Interesting tidbit from you two. So Walt, we got to ask the obligatory fan questions. You mentioned playing with Preston, and there's probably a ton of questions there. But when you look at that Rams team coming onto the Rams, they were a very respected team, late '70s, early '80s. The stupid Cowboys and Vikings and some other folks, Niners, maybe you've heard of them, got in our way a few times. I cried a lot of tears as a 10-year-old. But was there anybody anybody you faced that was just a tough matchup, whether it's blocking a 4-3 defensive end, or did you face Lawrence Taylor? I mean, was there anybody that really you just went, oh boy, bring my lunch today?
Well, I did play against Lawrence Taylor.
Oof.
And, he was tough. I played against one of the toughest guys. I played against, then I went to Kansas City and we played against a lot of those Bronco linebackers that were always really good. And then I played with Bruce Matthews in Houston. But his brother played in Cleveland. And his brother was, I don't know how long he played. He must have played like 15 years. But the guy wasn't that big, but just tough as nails. And played against some of those Steeler linebackers. So, just played against a lot of just kind of great players. But you think about those teams in Los Angeles, Preston, there was a lot of great players. You just go down the row of, the Youngbloods and Hacksaw Reynolds and Fred Dreyer and Pat Thomas and Johnny Johnson and I don't know how many kids Johnny's got playing. And I think he's got a son playing somewhere. I thought he did, but just so many great players. Nolan Cromwell, and then Pat Hayden and all those offensive linemen that they were just so great at that era. And it's interesting because as I went on other places, I ran into some of those people down the road because somehow they get released or they get traded, and so you'd see some guys that you play with later on that you played with in Los Angeles, and you might play with them again in Houston or someplace else down the road. It was always a lot of fun, and it's great. The NFL it's always such a great environment. Like before the game, I always kind of equated to that Looney Tunes cartoon where there was the sheepdog and the wolf, and they kind of, hey Ralph, they check in, they punch their card, and how you doing today? What's going on? So you play against the same guys all the time. You get up to the line of scrimmage, it's like, hey, how you doing today? What's going on? How's the family? And then you go at it for 60 minutes, and afterwards you say, all right, see you next time. Have a good night.
I love that.
It's a great camaraderie. In the meantime, there's a tremendous amount of competition, but on the outside, it's very great camaraderie, great respect for every other player that's in the league. So, and you see that. I saw that today. I saw it Super Bowl. You see it on playoff games. It's I enjoy going to games and even sitting around like after the game's over and just watching what happens after the game, because there's a lot of just mutual respect that goes along with playing in the NFL.
Tell us about the one game that you remember or stands out from your career.
Well, I think there was games like team Well, one game obviously is the game I caught my first touchdown. You know, that was
Right.
a big one. You know, I had some decent Monday night games against the Raiders when I was in Kansas City. I think one of the games that sticks out of my mind is as a team game. The Chiefs hadn't gone to the playoffs in quite a while, and then we had to beat the Steelers the last game of the year. So we we ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. You know, blocked a punt for a touchdown and blocked a kickoff. I mean,
Wow.
blocked a extra point, not an extra point, but a field goal. To, you know, to win the game. You know, it's like what we had to do all this stuff just to win, but just the way we won it, we had great special teams, and so we won it such a team game, and that got us into the playoffs for the first time in a long, long time. So
Wow.
that was a
Love
kind
it.
of a memorable game from the standpoint of how we won. Wasn't really necessarily anything that I did, but it was just a great environment, beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh and going on to the playoffs after that.
Was that now? Was your quarterback in Kansas City? Was that Steve DeBerg?
No, I was no. Bill Kenny was the quarterback.
Oh, Bill Kenny.
And then,
Okay.
and then a famous announcer. I came when I was there. He was out of the 1983 draft. Probably didn't. It wasn't one of the successful ones out of the '83 draft, but the first one picked. You know who that is?
Is it Ken
Who was-
O'Brien or
Todd
Tony
Blackman.
Eason?
Oh, Todd Blackridge. Yeah.
How about that trivia?
I can't
Wow,
believe
that's
I
a good
missed
one.
that.
He's probably made
That's-
more than anybody. He's done so many
Yeah.
things on ABC and whatever he's doing. He does all the big games now.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. He is
I
good.
can't believe I missed
He
that. I'm
struggled,
ashamed.
he struggled more than a lot of those other guys that came out of that '83 draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the legendary class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got to ask you one question because you are a rare guest on here as a tight end. So you hung around with the offensive linemen. I'm guessing like the Rich Sauls, the Dennis Harris, the Ken Hills, and then you hung around with Preston Denard and Billy Waddy. And what's the difference in a friendship group between the big guys and some people would say the diva pretty guys in the wide receiver room? What was that like being the guy that bridges that gap as a tight end?
Well, I remember one thing I do remember about those linemen with the Rams was the fact that we'd have this meeting and they'd be watching a film or something, and they had all played a long time, but they never did anything wrong. It was always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
The coach, like in the coach, you feel like a rookie. It's like, you gotta do better now. You gotta do it again. You better get that done. You better get that right, or we're gonna find somebody else. You can't do it. And he'd be like, it wasn't my fault. Wait a second. Look, this happened here and this happened there, and then I tried. He grabbed me, and it was just they had played so long. They had such a great camaraderie between them, and always never blame themselves for anything that went wrong. Now the receivers, though, that was especially in Los Angeles, especially with Lionel Taylor. I mean, Lionel was he was the king of that deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he ran everything. There was no let up in that meeting. You couldn't get away with anything, or he'd call you out on everything. And
Wow.
but he was great guy. I wish I'd see him more than I know. He's near us, probably closer to Preston than I am. But
Actually, I need to grab you and we go get him and take him to lunch.
that's right.
I'm actually going to do that, but yeah, you're so right about all that because, but what's unique? He answered it correctly. You got to yield to the big guys. I even have to yield to the big guys, and we both had the pleasure to play under Lionel Taylor's tutelage because, he was a champion, Super Bowl champion with the Steelers. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, but you go back to the books. He was the first guy to catch 100 balls in the NFL. With the Denver Broncos. We had a very talented coach.
Yeah.
But Lionel was unique.
But
Lionel was unique because he, like Walt says, he would literally talk you out of the right answer. And if he did that in the meetings, he would then stand up and say, "That's why I can't play you. You can't even make your mind up." He's so funny.
Speaking of the coaches we had, with Gene Huey, and I
Yep.
know you got Gene on.
Yep.
And Gene was, he was my freshman year. He was there.
Mm-hmm.
He left. Gene coached a long, long time, obviously with the Colts.
Yep.
And then Robert Ford showed up.
Robert Ford.
Yeah, he was a little bit different than Gene Huey for you,
Very,
I know,
very.
But Robert Ford ended up coaching, 3 Super Bowls in Dallas. Went on to coach with Jimmy Johnson in Miami. He coached a long, long time. So, and then if you look at the people that we had, and I even go back to my high school coach and say, Matt, he made a great impact on my life. But between Gene Huey and Robert Ford and Lionel Taylor, and you talk about some great coaches, great men. It was just it was a great experience, and we got the best. We really did get the best.
We did. You never had the opportunity to play for this gentleman, but I had him in Buffalo, and that was Milt Jackson. He's no longer alive with us today, but oh my God, he was just as talented as Lionel. And really, I could say he was a little brother, a spinoff of Lionel, because he was just as crazy. But take us now, because of time. You have a wonderful career. Your best year, I believe, might have been 85 with Kansas City. You had almost 400 yards or so receiving. I don't know how many balls you caught, 30 to some, but you had a great year that year. But you go on and you end up having a very successful career. Played as long as I did too as well. We both leave the game, retire, relocate back here to Albuquerque, and we both finished our degrees after our career. You went into private business. I went into private business. Tell us about your journey going into business and how you started your company.
Well, first of all those statistics that you just gave for 85, Travis Kelce gets them in 1 year. So
it's a different era. It's a different era, Walt.
Two games,
exactly.
430 catches in 2 games. It takes a whole year to get.
Yeah. Well, we got to have something to brag about, right?
He's wearing your number, Walt.
Yeah,
he's wearing your number.
Giving him some goals. Well, I got out of when I graduated. I went back and just got my degree, and decided I wanted to go into the real estate business, the commercial real estate business, and got my license and started. Met some people, then kind of got helped me away, learned the business, and helped me to taught me what I needed to know, and a mentor. Had some mentors as I was going up, and then in about 1990, I said, well, I think I know enough. I think I'll just open my own company. And then, so I opened my own company. And then in 2008, I joined a franchise called SVN. And we have about 200 offices across the country. And we're one of the fastest growing commercial real estate companies in the U.S. And I now have 18 brokers that work for me. We do property management. We do office, retail, industrial, multifamily, investments, and we do sales, leasing, and management. So, and I've had 2 careers really in my life. I've had my football career right out of college, and then this one. So, I've been fortunate. This job is similar to football in the fact that it's up to me. If I'm going to be successful, it's up to me to do the right things. And I talk to my brokers about, hey, you got to do the right things every day. You got to, practice. You got to do. It really is like football. You got to do the blocking, the tackling, and put all the pieces together and learn how to do it. And you've got to continue to try to get better every day. In football, they do that all the time to you. It's like, you're not getting better. You're getting worse. You better be getting better. So, it's a continual learning business. Even get into a transaction, even today or tomorrow might be different than one I've ever had in my life. But I can pull what I've learned in the past and say, hey, I've been there, done that, and I know how to do this. But I enjoy the other thing too about, we coach in YAFL together, and one of the things I enjoy is helping people get better. So I have 18 brokers that work for me. I enjoy helping them to make a career out of commercial real estate and helping them get better. And the other great thing about this job is, I don't have to retire. If I just want to keep working, I'll keep working. They'll wheel me out of on this chair. They'll wheel me out the door.
Easier on the knees, I imagine.
But it's a great career. Never the same. It's always changing. Great people. The freedom to do what I want to do. Time-wise, I can control my time pretty well. It's a very hard job. You have to put a lot into it. There's nothing easy about it. But it's very enjoyable. And I've really enjoyed the career that I've had in commercial real estate.
And he's been very successful here in this community and throughout the state. And branching out and partnering like he does. It's I've experienced the same thing. It's just like what we went through.
Yeah.
It's the disciplines we learned in athletics and sports and the grooming. And he mentioned about all these great mentors he and I both had. And you can't go wrong when you have that kind of tutelage and instruction. It just molds you to do all the things the right way. But what a great career. It has always been my joy to have played with Walt. And the most exciting thing is to actually get a chance to play with a teammate at that next level. And but we played against some great teammates on other teams, and that's a story itself we'll have to talk about. Maybe that's a show one day, Stace. I don't know.
I've been pushing for the Robin Coles and Bruce Herons and you.
Oh yeah,
Walt,
and Andy Frederick, all those guys coming back.
Great. That was a great deal. That was that great golf tournament, Preston. That was a great job on that.
Oh yeah,
seeing all those guys.
Yep, used to bring them in. We used to have some fun.
That's great.
Well, outstanding. Well, at this point, time is upon us. So, we always end this this segment with our guests with an exciting 2-minute drill, and we're both familiar with 2-minute drills. So we run it a little different. We don't really force the peel on you, but you can manage this. My cohort is going to take us through that. Stacy, take us through the 2-minute drill, my friend.
Do you have any timeouts?
You get no timeouts.
No timeouts.
And you cannot call a friend or wife or anyone else. This is you're on the
No
spot.
red flag. I don't have a red flag. Oh, it's through the booth.
I got one.
He's got a prop for everything. Yeah. Okay. So we'll make this easy. It's designed for everybody to learn all about Walt and find out what you're doing today. So here we go, Walt. You're inside the red zone. By the way, no Travis Kelce. This is a one-time set. You're on your own, man. Okay. So grass or turf?
I'm going to say grass.
Hey, that's our boy.
I thought the streak was at risk there for a minute. He kind of paused. I was like,
Now, well, if you would have said field turf, because we played on a different turf.
Oh, yeah.
Field turf is
concrete.
different turf.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so grass stays alive. These get tougher. Walt, baseball or football?
I'm going to go. I got to go with football.
Oh, whoa, okay.
That's why I'm
Okay.
sitting here today. That's why I'm sitting here. So I got to go with that.
Well, there you go.
That's fair. Okay.
That's a smart guy.
A little New Mexico flavor here. Tacos or tamales?
Oh, definitely tacos.
Oh, yeah, man after my own heart. Love it. This is tough. There's only one right answer on this next one. Chiefs or Rams?
I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs.
Oh, I like it.
Well,
Okay.
that was the wrong answer.
That was the wrong answer, Walt. Come on.
Last year, I was going for the Rams.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Valid point. Well played. Well played. I like that. Okay. Walt's favorite movie?
My favorite movie, I have to say, is Gladiator.
I love it.
Good one. Good
I
one.
love it. That's a great movie. First time choice. Okay, and this one's tough. Your most underrated teammate at any level.
Most underrated teammate.
This one's a stumper.
And again, at any level.
Any level.
Oh, like I can go all the way back to Little League.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you. Yeah.
Give a shout out to that guy.
No, I think, I have a good friend of mine that I played with at football and baseball at UNM, and I felt he was a great teammate, but I felt he was a little underrated. But he ended up having a great finishing strong. That was a friend of mine named Mark Byron. He was a great friend.
Very
And kind
cool.
of worked his way up, but probably a little underrated in the long run.
Shout out to Mark. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Your greatest football achievement.
My greatest football achievement, I would have to say my greatest football achievement was making that roster that first year with the Rams. That was a long shot. The odds were, if I'd have bet on myself in Vegas, I'd have made a bunch of money. But, but that was the greatest achievement for sure, because that started everything after that.
Outstanding. Outstanding. And finally, to end the 2-minute drill, who plays you in a movie about your life?
Who plays me?
Shot, your favorite actor.
That is a tough one.
You can choose Brad Pitt if you
No,
really want
I
to.
got one for him.
Oh,
I got one for him if you don't say it.
okay.
Denzel Washington.
You know, how did you know that? No,
That's what I'm going with.
that's what's going. You know who I was going to say?
You can
Fantastic.
do anything, you know. You can
What
do
about Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah, there you go.
That would be the one.
He would be good.
All right.
I'm still
right,
reeling
all
from
right.
Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel.
Denzel's my favorite actor, but it's like I can never say he's going to play me. Yeah. You know, I saw a little
Play
Paul.
anything, so you know what the heck.
Fair enough. We gave the rules. I see a little Paul Newman in Walt, like a little
Yep.
Paul Newman.
That's
a little
another
old
one.
school. A little old school there.
Robert Redford.
Oh, here we go. You open up a can of worms now.
This is usually when the wife walks in and she's going,
No.
"Yeah." Walt Arnold, what a pleasure to have you on Gridiron Icon.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you so much for joining me and your teammate.
Stacy, let's take him to overtime. One last question. This is a New Mexico flavor. We should have started with this question in the beginning. So I'm going to throw it at Walt.
Let's do
And
it.
Stacy, if you don't know what this phrase means, you can ask. You ready? Walt, red or green?
I am going with red.
Whoa!
Is this peppers?
This
You know
is
what?
New Mexico hatch chilies,
I
baby.
would have said green
Yeah.
a few years ago, but my taste buds have changed, and I'm more
What?
red. Or you know what the best one is? Christmas.
What?
Christmas.
Well, yeah, Christmas, and Christmas is both.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, see, I knew I had to throw that in there. Stacy,
Thank
you're
you.
learning some
I
culture.
I was going to answer before you asked, but I let
Okay, look at you guys. I was guessing I'm a food and coffee guy, so now I'm going to have to try New Mexico peppers. Like,
You know, I got to
Okay.
send you some chili. That's what I'm going to
please
do.
do. I
Yeah,
love that.
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, what an absolute thrill for Preston and I, certainly for me here at Gridiron Icon. Walt, thank you so much for joining us on this little show. And I'm sure that you guys could talk for another couple of hours. So we would love to have you back. Maybe we'll do a Lobos reunion, and I'll just run microphones and let you guys share with the fan base here some of the great stories.
Those guys, they take it over between Rob.
Oh, yeah. Oh, only if you let him. But Bruce, yeah, he thinks he runs it.
Believe me, Robin's going to take it over. You know that.
Linebackers. I just want to point out, people, linebackers.
Linebackers.
Totally different cat. Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us here at Gridiron
Thank you, my
Icon.
friend. Yeah.
Very much
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
And to all our
Have a good
listeners, sorry about that. All our listeners, please listen in, like, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, all the normal locations here. Preston and I will return next week. And again, as we close
Yeah.
out, a special thanks to Walt Arnold. Thanks again, Walt.
All right.